Oh, it's been a while. I've had a very interesting, I guess, work side project, which is I have been looking at how we can host generative AI models for general use inside UCL. And so to do that, I've set up some servers in Condenser on our private cloud with some GPUs. And I've got an open weights model called Qwen3 Coder on one of those different systems. And I'm going to show some of the ways you can make use of it. Um, if you look at the terminal here, you see I've set some environment variables. This environment variable here, the Anthropic base URL, points to the server that's doing the actual LLM hosting. And I've set the model, which is set to Qwen Coder. This is something I've set on the server side. In addition to that, there's an API key, which you need to have access to the service, right? So although I'm showing this off, you can't go ahead and use this right now. But when you do this on a system with Claude Code installed, for example, you can use Claude Code to talk to your own LLMs. So if I switch terminals, okay, in this terminal, I've got Claude Code running. And you can actually see here, it knows it's using a different model. It can see it's using the Qwen Coder model. And so we can talk to this just like Claude, right? The difference being that the inference happens on UCL servers. And to be honest, the model's not quite as good. But we can tell it things like, let's pick a language, Fortran. And then what happens is in the background, Claude Code is talking to our inference server, and it's printed up our Fortran code. And just like with normal Claude, right, you can get it to then make that program. And then we could look at it and compile it and run it if we wanted. I don't think I actually have a Fortran compiler on this machine, but let's see. I do. Okay. We've got our F90 program. Well, actually, let's ask Claude if we can compile it. And because I'm a paranoid person, I've put up Claude in the mode where it asks for permission. Let's do that. And let's run the program. Wonderful, right? So this is all happening on UCL servers. There's no data going off to a third party. And this is exposed as an OpenAI compatible endpoint. So you can use it with tools like Claude. You can use it with tools like, I believe Visual Studio Code, although I don't really mess with Copilot because it's weirdly crap. But okay, so what if you're a less technical person? Well, this afternoon, I've been setting up something called OpenWebUI. And OpenWebUI gives you a very sort of friendly ChatGPT-ish interface to these things. And so, for example, we can ask information here. So something like, give recipe for spicy sauce. Right. And very much like ChatGPT will generate the stuff. Yeah, I quickly flipped over here because the other kind of endpoint I've enabled is there's one of the inference servers is actually running an image generation model called Stable Diffusion XL Turbo. And in very much the same way, you can call that by creating an OpenAI client and connecting it to this URL with the right API token and giving a prompt, right? Ignore the fact this is running inside the unified AI system on Condenser. That's just because I wanted something where I could very easily spin up a Jupyter notebook, just so that we get graphical output. So we can actually run that. Um, and it's generated that image, right? SDXL Turbo is not very like high quality images, but you get nice small images, and it's fairly fast. As a test, I've also enabled an endpoint that's running a model called Flux.2 Klein, the 9 billion parameter version of this. We can give it the same code, the same request, right? And it will take a bit longer to generate the images because these are much higher quality images. Okay, so we've got our lovely picture of our frogs. Flux really likes to make cartoons. It's one of the things I've noticed when messing about with it. So we've got image generation. Can we do that from OpenUI? Well, yes, we can. OpenUI has a slightly odd interface for this. It has this little button here called integrations, which you have to turn on. But if we turn on images, we can say a cute cartoon frog, and it will generate the image. Isn't that wonderful? This is using the SDXL model because the Flux model is being hosted on like my dev machine because that's a machine where I'm testing things. And I'll probably tear that down fairly soon to try other things. So we've got image integrations, right? A bit like you would have in like ChatGPT or something like that. What about if we want to look at web search, right? One of the nice things models can do now is they can do web searches. Well, OpenWebUI lets you do this through DuckDuckGo, and so we can do a search, right? So we could say something like, what are the news headlines in the UK? Ah, so what did I do wrong there? I did not enable the integration, right? Let's delete that chat. Let's try that again. What are the news? And again, if we go down to integrations and enable web search, send, then it will do the web search, right? And it'll summarize what the current headlines are. Wonderful. So again, this is, apart from the search, which of course went to DuckDuckGo, this is very much, as I said, like a full local AI platform within UCL, right? For everybody, but also for technical people, giving tools that allow you to connect to your various development tools. So yeah, one day this might even be a service.